Hello, everybody. I'm Meso,
And I'm Eljay.
and streaming to you from a golden beach, this is Ninjago and Jay.
I need to work on my timing estimate. Every podcast is different, so it's like 12 seconds for Ninjago cast, and maybe like 13, 14 for Knack and Jay. It's all different.
Oh, no, dang.
Nah, we're all good though. So,
Well, hello, guys. It's been a while.
yeah. Well, what are you talking about? We just had a podcast yesterday.
Oh, you're so right, LJ.
Yeah,
We did. It was a wonderful time.
of course.
Borog Storms released very promptly.
Very promptly, and definitely not like 4 months later after it was recorded. It's fine.
Yes. I'm glad we seem to be coming through okay.
Yeah,
Seem to be sounding good. Excellent.
Yeah, Mr. A attempts YouTube on the YouTube live chat says, "Sup, Meso, you are cool."
Aw.
All right, I see how it is.
Thanks, man. I'm glad I'm the only cool one here.
Okay,
I'm very glad to hear that.
thank you all for joining us. We're done now. Just gonna go ahead. Just gonna go and turn the stream off. Click.
Don't leave. We have exciting, non-controversial topics to discuss.
Oh yeah, of course. Like 3 weeks late, and it's fine.
Yes, exactly.
This conversation point is always timely.
Yeah, no, it's always relevant. Although there is a funny story relating to it that we will share about how this idea first came about. But I think before we do anything, before we talk about what's been going on with the channel recently, before we talk about plugs, before we talk about the topic, there's something we must say.
Mm-hmm.
LJ, would you like to say the thing that we must say?
Okay, yeah, so we are streaming this live from a Golden Beach, December 24th, 2022. And we have to address the elephant in the room that is currently setting the community ablaze. And what we have to say is, we cannot address the elephant in the room. That's it. We can't talk about it. I mean, can we talk about it? Yes. Like Meso, I think you put it very well. Letter of the law? Yeah, we could. Will we?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And we're really just gonna leave it there. I mean, when you have a lot of different groups and channels that normally talk about this stuff, let's go and move on.
All right, fair enough. That's our epic, cryptic message of the day.
Yep.
So, one thing I would like to say before we get too much into the discussion at hand is I don't want to wax too long about this because we've already made like 2 videos about it, but I do just want to formally address it. That being the TTV channel has split up. F in the chat.
No.
And we get an F for the splitting. Yeah, we have basically taken a big knife. We've cut the channel right down the middle, and we have branched off into an offshoot. Our new project that we are working on, titled "Keep the Peace," where all of our system-based content will be going. Ninjago cast, Monkey cast, Brick feed, new set reviews, old set reviews, reaction series like the upcoming Legends of Chima Reacts, Lego game Let's Plays like the upcoming Lego Universe Let's Play, video essays we may do in the future. Any of our system-based content will go on Keep the Peace. TTV is going into kind of a stasis. Not because it's being dropped, but because... Wait, what, LJ?
No. Continue. I mean, stasis isn't the word I'd use, but yeah, go ahead.
Fair enough. It's kind of being just going to drastically slow, but we are going to hopefully have a regular content output here of a few core things. I want to bring back Knack and Jay regularly. I want to bring back the TTV podcast regularly. If anything ever happens with Bionicle, I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll talk about it here. So there is still going to be a form of content delivery that goes on here, and hopefully it'll be more regular than it has been, but it just won't be a lot. At least until the point maybe in the future where we rekindle our passion for Bionicle, or something interesting happens with it.
Yeah, if something interesting happens with Bionicle, if we finally feel passionate about making Bionicle content, if we finally have rebuilt our tolerance for dealing with the power-hungry sycophants that inhabit the space, then yeah.
Which admittedly is a large part of it, and we discussed that during the first like video we made. We were basically just like, the canon contests burnt us out a lot, and we're not even really recovered from them yet. Like, maybe a little bit. It's getting better, but not a whole lot. So who knows what the future will hold, but we're not like canceling the TTV channel. But if you ever wonder where those other videos went, they're on Keep the Peace. And if you care to see them, please check out Keep the Peace. But I will say this: do not subscribe unless you are actually interested in the content that we are going to be putting out over there. Because what we want to do is we want to cultivate a subscriber base of people who actually care and who actually will watch, instead of the TTV channel, which has 68,000 subscribers, of people who subscribed for like G2 leaks and stuff, who just don't care about the kind of content we put out and don't watch. That's the kind of thing that tanks the algorithm.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to grow, a subscriber base of people who just care about system content, and then keep this channel for the people who care about Bionicle content. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you have anything you want to say on the Keep the Peace launch, Elj?
Oh, yeah, it's been awesome. It's been fantastic. Things have been going great, and everyone that has been working on it have been doing a phenomenal job. Special shout out, of course, goes to Zach, GL, Zeros. Oh my goodness, Zeros. Yeah, no, everyone's been doing great. Ven for music.
We have a lot of fun stuff coming, and everyone's been doing very well so far. I give a special shout out to you, Elj.
Oh, thank you.
You helped drastically to get the channel up and running and actually get it launched. I was unfortunately indisposed for a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't really my intention. I had a trip planned for the second week of December, and then coincidentally, Lego was like, "Oh, hey, the review embargo for the sets we're going to be sending you is also the second week of December." And I was like, "Oh,
yeah." Review embargoes are kind of tricky to work around.
Oh yeah, very tricky.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a thing, but that's all. I just wanted to kind of mention that. Without further ado, LJ, would you like to hit us with Le Epic plugs?
Sure, yeah. So, if you're watching, thank you so much for watching. If you want to continue this discussion, head on over to the TTV message boards at board.ttvchannel.com. You need to be 13 years or older, and you can have a good time. Just make sure you abide by the rules. Additionally, if you're interested in supporting what we do here and over on Keep the Peace, consider heading over to our Patreon at patreon.com/the TTV channel, where you can donate as low as $1 a month to help things run here. Keep the lights on, make some reviews happen. We have some reviews coming up that have been in the works for a while, and I just haven't had like the time, the energy, the motivation, etc. to get to them. But we definitely do appreciate any and all, and we appreciate your viewership. It means a lot. Super chats also mean a lot, but don't feel obligated. We appreciate you being here at all. And
I just like engagement for people to know, like, they don't totally hate us. It feels nice.
It definitely... It's okay. Some people are allowed to hate us, and they know who they are, and they're not welcome here.
There you go.
A couple of quick things from the YouTube chat. First of all, Mr. A attempts YouTube. Says, yay, shout out. LJ's cool. I grew up with a mangosteen tree in my backyard. And you're cool.
Oh.
That's friggin' awesome.
That's
They
pretty
also
cool. I've
ask,
never heard of that.
Meso, will the elephant be reviewed on TTV or keep the peace? Any elephants outside of the elephant attack? I can't remember the name of the set, but it's the rats. I gotta get it up real quick. Where is it?
The Monkey Kid Elephant.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the Monkey Kid Elephant. The Monkey Kid Elephant is over on Keep the Peace right now. There we go. The Yellow Tusk Elephant has already been reviewed, and it's over on Keep the Peace.
So true. Any elephants aside from the Monkey Kid elephant will probably be reviewed here.
TTV.
I like elephants.
Yep. Crunchbite asks, will K2P snippets continue on the TTV channel? Should we choose to sub later? I think for a period of time we'll have some snippets over here on TTV. Just kind of saying, hey everyone, by the way, we have some stuff over on this channel. Just to let you know in case you're interested. But
actually, once we get into the series that we're going to be launching, so far it's just been set reviews, but we have a few things coming out very soon that would make for good snippets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of it.
Eventually it will stop though.
Yeah.
As things normalize, we don't want to have a bunch of snippets just come out and just kind of flood the channel. But for a time, it does make sense too.
Yeah. But
okay.
I think that's everything.
I agree. All right, let's get into the topic for today. Like I said, it's a timely thing. It never really gets old. The topic of comparing and contrasting Lego story themes. There was a particular instance that kind of prompted this discussion to be had, and it was a Twitter exchange that LJ had with someone on Twitter.
Wait, I had an exchange? Oh no, I didn't do this, did I?
No. You simply replied to the person and utterly destroyed them, basically.
Oh, sweet.
And
yeah.
contributed in the ratioing of them to the point where I believe they deleted the tweet.
Meso, I haven't interacted with pen plays in a very long time. What are you talking about?
Not that ratioing.
Oh, somebody else. Okay. Whoops.
Somebody else. LOL. Yeah. So basically, the person deleted the tweet, and honestly, they're no one in the community. They're no one worth putting on blast. They're a literal who, Someone even replied to the drama, and it was like, why are we platforming this person?
Yeah, it's some that was someone I met at the Crystallized premiere in New York. They're another member of the Lego community, and they were like, literally, who is this? Why are you bothering responding? And we'll get to that in a second. But I remember what you're talking about now. I got to bring up the tweet.
The theme of the tweet in general was simply to say, modern story themes suck. Ninjago sucks. Lego sucks. They are failing. All of their story themes are garbage, except for Bionicle. Bionicle was great because it was edgy. Bionicle was edgy because of its tone. It had stakes, it had death, it had violence, it had universe ending potential, people getting shot, people getting stabbed, not with bullets or anything, but people used blunt force weapons, people used blasters. It was crazy, awesome stuff happened in Bionicle. And everything else Lego does is just very juniorized. And it's just not interesting. And until Lego realizes that Bionicle was good because it was edgy, they will continue to release garbage content. That was essentially the gist of the tweet.
Yeah, they used some interesting verbiage, something along the lines of you're a child, stupid children like Ninjago or something to that respect. Because I found the tweet, or I found what I said to them, and I said, not a child and not stupid enough to not realize that you're doing yourself and your community a huge disservice with your garbage attitude and shallow understanding of these themes. We can discuss the merits of every theme and realize they can all be enjoyed for valid reasons. I think the fact you've disabled direct replies to your tweets suggests you're not interested in a dialogue, and at best are attention-seeking. I can't say this is going to inspire any Ko-fi donations. Ko-fi link. So the community I was referring to in that response was the Bionicle community, because I had a avatar of a Picari, and they were obviously very big fans of Bionicle. And yeah, it was a garbage tweet, and it was a garbage mentality. And the reason why I felt it was important to reply to it is because opinions and statements should always be addressed by the merit of that opinion and statement. Like, it shouldn't... I'm not only going to respond to, like, if Duckbricks, who's fantastic, by the way, go subscribe to him. If Duckbricks said something that I disagreed with, I'm not only going to engage with Duckbricks, I'm going to engage with an idea on its merits, regardless of follower count, because that's how you have a conversation, you have a dialogue, you talk to everyone. I think there is an argument to suggest that platforming someone is potentially problematic, but no one platformed this person. They're not here discussing this. We're just discussing their idea.
True. And generally, I agree. And I just thought it was an interesting thing to analyze. Like, I think, I mean, no secret, what the person actually said was worthless, and I don't agree with it. But it did start to make me think and, like, extrapolate that out and be like, okay, I like Ninjago. I also obviously like Bionicle. My favorite Bionicle year is 2006, which I would say is probably the perfect example of what this person is trying to get across. You know what I mean? Because 2006 is like the quintessentially cited year as being like the edgy year, the one with move along and the chain link fences, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if that's my favorite, why is it my favorite? And why do I disagree with this person? Because it seems like we're kindred spirits. And it just kind of launched into this thought experiment, which it occurs to me in all of the episodes we've talked about. You know, we're on 33 episodes of Knack and Jay, and we've never, like, done a full episode comparing Ninjago and Bionicle.
That's
not once.
That's weird. I hadn't noticed that, because maybe it's just because I used to do the Eljay Johnson show, and I've had a couple of episodes where I did that.
Yeah. You and I have never sat down to do it. And in this episode, we will finally prove once and for all which one is better, and we will have a concrete answer, and we will smack down the other one into the depths of Lego obscurity and publicly humiliate any of its fans for still liking it after we are done with it.
Of course.
Because that's obviously the purpose of why we are here.
Yep, absolutely.
Obviously.
Yep.
So, do you have any opening statements, Eljay, on this topic?
Let me go ahead and get my papers all squared away. Almost Christmas means it wasn't Christmas. Oh, wait, sorry. Wrong statement. Sorry, wrong.
Like, I don't know. I guess, like, a good place to start would be, we've recently ranted about Ninjago a lot because of our Ninjago casts. For our Bionicle audience, what are your feelings about Ninjago at present, and how have they been over the years?
So,
or vice versa, if it's easier to say it that way.
Ninjago has, to me, always been the spiritual successor, like the actual spiritual successor to Bionicle. because
As much as I liked Hero Factory, it didn't really have enough to chew on.
I guess there are kind of two sides to it. Hero Factory serviced the physical product side of being the spiritual successor. Side tangent, worth mentioning that Hero Factory was only meant to be one of Bionicle's spiritual successors. The other one was intended to be the Construction Ben 10 series. A lot of people kind of forget that existed. So, Hero Factory serviced the physical product side of things, but Ninjago always did a really swell job of servicing the story side of things. You have all these different characters that have elemental powers. They go on an adventure. They're an ensemble cast. And there's a lot of intrinsic world building and world development that's happening there. And in that respect, like, Ninjago really hit the ground running. It always had a lot of mystique and mystery in the sense of, like, what else could be out there. So Ninjago, to me, always scratched that storytelling itch. If Hero Factory and Chima were always something I could point to and kind of snicker about, at least when it came to Hero Factory. With Chima, it was just outright point and laugh. But
yeah,
if Hero Factory served that purpose, Ninjago was actually what I was consuming in lieu of Bionicle. And
it's been over 10 years, you know?
Yeah.
We did content about it starting on year, 3? The end of year 2? I forget. I guess it would have been year 3.
Yeah, well, I think
we started to talk about it.
I mean, we've been talking about it from word go. Like, I'm not sure if we have the oldest video on YouTube about Ninjago. I don't think that's the case, but we're, like, really up there.
What, you mean the one we did on my channel?
Yeah.
Ninjago special coverage with Lewa Johnson. Dude, that video is so good. I love that video.
I don't know what the older videos on the channel are, or on YouTube are, but yeah, no. So we've been talking about it for a very, very long time, and Ninjago for me has always been that go-to story team. It's always been the story team. The story theme I can go to and be interested in what they're doing. What are they working on next?
Yeah, and then I would say it's kind of changed a little bit.
Oh yeah, so spoiler alert for anyone that was looking to get into Ninjago, the ending was unfathomable garbage. Holy smokes, was that not good.
As a chronic pessimist, I kind of expected it to be bad, and it surprised me by just how bad it was, going to be, or how it shook out to be, rather. It was basically a complete betrayal of everything that Thebes stood for. It went into, like, hack writing territory on character, like, plot. It was just terrible.
Yeah.
And it's a very recent development that just came out like 3 months ago.
Yeah. Oh man, has it been 3 months?
I think so, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Because it was shortly before October.
You're right. It was the very, very beginning of October.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. It feels like it's been a lot longer just because it's been, like, terrible watching the aftershocks. Because, like, the community has struggled with it internally. We've had internal issues pertaining to it. Like, we haven't even announced it, but it's so bad. It's contributed to one of our hosts on KTP, Haley, needing to take a step back from, like, YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really, really, really bad.
Yeah. Ninjago community is kind of in free fall right now, and, like, I think a lot of people would hear that and they would be like, "Oh, well, that does not surprise me because Ninjago sucks. Ninjago always sucked, And it's like, well, No, it really didn't. It was certainly never perfect, but it did a lot of things very, very well. And it, like LJ said, for me, it was always kind of my go-to after Bionicle to have a character-centric, elemental influenced story theme ongoing at the present time.
Uh-huh.
And there was a reason for that. There was a reason why I followed it. It wasn't just out of obligation. Otherwise, I mean, we would have been like drinking the Chima Kool-Aid.
Oh no, we
But
couldn't
even
do
though we
that.
reviewed everything, we never said we liked that.
No,
We couldn't do that.
we were very upfront that Chima just was not our cup of tea.
No,
So
it was interesting to talk about, but it was never good. Even at its best, it was just as good as Ninjago at its worst. So I guess for today, I'd like to talk about our experiences with Ninjago, how we enjoyed it, why we enjoyed it, what we don't like about it, and do the same with Bionicle and why we're into Bionicle. And I think what I'd like to address first is really the thesis of that guy's Twitter point, and what a lot of people I see posit in terms of talking about system themes and Bionicle, that being tonality, which is what it really all boils down to. Bionicle was super serious and cool and geared towards older people. Ninjago is super goofy, doesn't have a lot of depth, and is geared toward younger people. Does that hold up intellectually? Dot dot dot. No, it doesn't. there's no mysterious preamble. That does not hold up. And I would say, yeah, Sakota in the Discord chat kind of takes the words right out of my mouth. I always say for every two yet split in half, Bionicle has like 10 dumb tree speak jokes. LJ, I would like to request a picture. One of the
oh,
ones I said. Bring up the pie guy.
okay, Pie Guy. Let me go ahead and
It's time.
let me see if I have Pie Guy. I
The
have a
reason that I find it was the one I sent on Discord.
no. I know where it is. You might not be familiar with OBS and how it functions. I have a lot of pictures up and I have to sift through them. Okay, Pie Guy
Respect.
is on the screen.
The common fallacy I find when discussing Bionicle is everyone always says that Bionicle is super serious and cool and fun and aims and takes itself seriously and aims high, but then they also love Minogue. And you can't. I mean, you can say both. You can prefer a dark story and still appreciate comedy, which I think is the nuanced take. What a lot of people opt to do is not the nuanced take, though. And I don't think you can talk in extremes, but still consider Minogue to be like one of the best Bionicle pieces of content. Because Minogue was very goofy. And I don't say that as an insult. I love Minogue, but Minogue was very, very goofy. Bionicle had Kapura farting fire. Minogue had this where are all the pies? Who ate all the pies guy. Bionicle, Minogue, the Borok swarms, the Templar era of storytelling had, Huki and Maku. There's a lot of stuff from the Templar Studios era, which is what people supposedly consider to be peak Bionicle, which just had fun with things. It was just about a bunch of Matoran, Tahunga, whatever kids just doing their thing on the villages, living life, fighting Rahi, having quality banter, cracking jokes, dancing, Lee Koro musician dance party. It wasn't super gritty. It wasn't super dark. I'm not saying it all was that way. There was a lot of seriousness. Daniel Camara in the YouTube chat mentions Jala's guard dialogue. And that's a good one. Very militaristic, strategically minded dialogue where he was talking about the different fronts of the assault, trying to combat the Rahi menace, etc., etc. Yeah, there was definitely seriousness, but you can't say there wasn't also levity. There was a tonal balance, and I think that's what really was so good about Minogue, is it could check both emotions at the same time. It could make you laugh, and then it could engross you in character-driven storytelling and the ambiance of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, Elge, but that was one of the things I liked the most about Minogue. It could do kind of everything. It was a jack of all trades.
Yeah. And no, I'll might be a bold claim. I'd say master of some, because Minogue,
Yeah.
that tonal. There's a difference between tonal balance and tonal dissonance, and I think Minogue hits tonal balance very well, but it does it in a way. So Minogue always takes itself. Okay, it doesn't always take itself seriously, and I think that's very important. It has some things that let you know, hey, this was created by a group of people who are enjoying what they're doing, and they want you to have fun with it like they are. The pies, I think, is a good example. The Hukimaku stuff, non-canon. This is a great scene that I'll go ahead and put this up. It's in Likoro, and it's all of the Limatoran dancing and singing and playing music, and you have Matau and Taipu standing off to the side. And in the game, you go up and talk to Matau and Taipu, and you talk shop. You talk what's next. You talk about what happened. It progresses things. But you just have this moment of levity. You can just enjoy, oh wow, okay, so all these people just suffered this crazy kidnap plot by a bunch of wasps, and now they're back and they're playing music and they're dancing. One of them is doing the friggin' robot.
It's party time.
But they're having a party. And I think that's totally fine. That's a great thing. Bionicle has always had humor. And it has always had... Sometimes you could possibly make the argument it's had, like, MCU-isms before the MCU was a thing. It's like quippy comic book dialogue. And it's just...
Like, we're talking about Minogue, but that was foundational. And like LJ said, some of it even is non-canon or made with Templars influence, like the Hukiyamaku stuff. But like you could stretch this exact same line of argumentation to the rest of Bionicle, written by Greg Farshtey. Almost like every other line in a Greg Farshtey book is like a zinger, a snarky retort, banter, characters like going back and forth, like trading barbs. Sometimes the chapters will end on like not a joke of some kind, but like word play, interplay between characters. Not necessarily like pie jokes, but not necessarily like grim dark either. There's a sense of levity in human conversation and how they interact with each other, or I guess biomechanical conversation. LOL. But it's all about, like Elder's saying, the tonal balance. Life is not all one thing or another. To write a realistic portrayal of characters interacting, you have to have both.
Yeah,
some people think that even Greg went a little too far. Like Toa of Plastic mentions Vezon, making a Jaws reference. Vezon is often cited as a point like against it, going like, "Oh, there was too much comedy." So clearly, Bionicle isn't all serious.
Yeah, I think that this Toa of Plastic made a really great point, though. It's like, yeah, Vezon makes a reference to Jaws, but it's not just that he makes a reference. Brutaka, in that scene, cuts him off to finish the reference. He understands exactly what he's about to say. And he's like, yeah, no, I get it. And you see that every so often as well. It's like the Shadowed One references, what is it, Revenge of the Sith. It's like, I think enough hands have been cut off this year. It's like, the novel he said that in was released in 2005, the year of Revenge of the Sith.
Yep.
So
true.
Yeah, it just...
And keep in mind, I'm not even like I like a tonal balance, but what I'm arguing is not necessarily that one is good and one is bad. What I'm arguing is that it exists. You can't argue that it doesn't exist. Outright comedy, pie jokes, and like fart jokes have been present in Bionicle since its inception in what most people consider to be some of the peak content. And then outright jokes, pop culture references, constant MCU-isms, and like character quips were present throughout its life in the mainline content. The movies, like Sakota was talking in the patron chat about how one of the reasons people interpret Bionicle as a serious story is because of all the books. But in the visual media, the tonality is pretty similar to what other Lego story themes are, which is a balance of the two. So that's why I don't believe this point. I do not believe that Bionicle is all grimdark. It's just not intellectually honest to claim that.
Yeah, and heck, we can even look to some of its marketing. I was getting all the images ready for this podcast, and I stumbled across an image. I don't even know why I have it, but it's a Free the Band promotion board. I think it's actually if I'm not mistaken, it's the Free the Band website, like freetheband.com back in 2006. Like, this is an official website that LEGO marketed heavily in 2006. This was an entire marketing push talking about how the Paraka kidnapped a human band called the All-American Rejects because their yacht, the All-American Rejects rented a yacht from the Paraka because the Paraka set up a fake yacht company to bait them into renting a yacht so that they could get on a yacht that went to Voyanui and they could kidnap them.
Rock yacht!
The rock yacht.
It's probably my favorite promotional campaign ever.
But Mesa, this isn't serious. What are you talking about? This isn't...
No, it's not.
What? No, we're not supposed to like this. This doesn't take itself seriously. This is having too much fun. How dare you?
Fun is good.
No,
I like levity.
Stop it. Yeah.
It's a point that some people purport, and again, I'm not even really talking about the guy on Twitter anymore because over the years I've seen this mentality ad nauseum. He's just the most recent example we point to. So it's not like we're personally singling him out. We're not even mentioning his username. But, you know, this mentality exists in people if you feel that the presence of comedy somehow compromises the story being told. And I would say, I would question people and be like, well, why do you think that? And I feel like the common retort would be, well, too much comedy makes it feel juniorized, and I don't like being treated like a kid. I like being treated like, you know, an adult. And good on you, Toa Plastic. If the Twitter user was a she, that's my mistake. I apologize. I admittedly didn't look too closely at the profile. But yeah, the argument there I just don't think holds water. I think if you feel that way, I'd say you may be a little too self-conscious about the media you consume, which may be a bit of an arrogant thing to say, but it's okay to crack jokes. I think it only becomes a problem if the amount of jokes begin to take away or work to undercut the seriousness of the situation at hand. And that, I think, is a conversation worth having. I don't think Bionicle does that often. I think there are a few points you could point to it doing that. I also don't think Ninjago does it that often. There is one point recently I can bring up, in the interest of being fair, that I do think Ninjago's comedy did undercut its seriousness. And that was in the most recent season. Ninjago crystallized when, spoiler alert, it was revealed that Harumi, the villain from the years-old season Sons of Garmadon, was alive and had been masterminding events in the background for a while now. And during the episode where she was revealed, and when she was basically like telling her story of how she was still alive and working in the background to Lloyd, she kept making jokes about like how she got all the villains back together for what was it, like a knitting club?
No, it was a volleyball team.
A volleyball team, yes. Like the volleyball team, and just constantly like making like sassy remarks back and forth to Lloyd. when that was not how her character was written before that point. Before that point, she was played much more straight. She was, she was twisted. She was evil. She was vengeful. She like worshipped Garmadon. She never talked like that. But now with a new writing team, and I guess a need to insert comedy to fill a quota, she starts making, odd, out of character jokes that aren't really that funny, and it took away from the scene in question. So, okay, fair. So, Ninjago does do it, you may say. They did it now with a character who, and this is important, didn't do it before. Sons of Garmadon, her origin season, I can't recall any instances of out-of-place comedy. Obviously, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I don't recall watching it and feeling that way. I thought it balanced its tone very well. You had a season about Lloyd's dead father being resurrected with a demonic ritual to bring him back into the world of Ninjago in a twisted, mangled, like zombie body that literally has a rib cage sticking out, and only to turn evil, try to attack Lloyd, try to kill him, denounce him as his son, like break his arm or something. I forget, he threw him out of a building and it was either his arm or a leg, and try to take over the city, all while Lloyd is gaslit by an emotionally abusive girl to entrap him and get him to inadvertently help bring his father back to life. It was pretty twisted. And did it have jokes? Heck yeah, it had jokes, but they didn't undercut the story. Ditto with Bionicle. I mean, are there any instances in Bionicle you can think of where the comedy undercut the story off the top of your head?
I'm
sure there's at least one somewhere, but I can't really. Wait, no, I just thought of one, but you go first.
Yeah, I was gonna say Web of Shadows.
In
think.
What sense? Like with Sidorak?
Well, there were a handful of scenes. Like there was a scene, and this is in the novelization, where Matau, he's like getting sidetracked about his like being a Rahi, and he's like he wants to make a nest for Okama or something, and he's like constantly joking about like, oh, I'm a creature. Some of the scenes with Sidorak were a bit but even then, like some of the scenes with Sidorak were kind of goofy, and it didn't undercut anything. Like when Sidorak and Vakama are walking along, and there's a Vizorak scrubbing the friggin' floor, and he's dripping like venom, so he scrubs harder, but then the venom keeps dripping and he keeps scrubbing.
Yeah, and like ultimately, comedy is very subjective. You could look at the Harumi thing and be like, well, that's not a problem. You could look at the Vizorak thing and be like, well, that is a problem, depending on your comedy tastes. So the discussion we're having isn't unilateral, but I didn't think the Vizorak thing was a problem. Personally, I thought it was fine. I can say in The Legend Reborn, I remember a lot of people taking issue with Barracks.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this.
Because Barracks was like always freaking out constantly and like not even really making jokes, just kind of being like eccentric,
Mm-hmm.
He was a fast talker. He spoke differently than the other Glatorian in Madanui's group, and people just kind of felt like he took away or wasn't interesting. I kind of felt that way when I was younger. Like Barracks wasn't really a favorite of mine, TBH, but now that I'm older, I rewatched Legend Reborn a few years ago, and I don't really recall having too much of an issue with him. Because despite all of that, the rest of the movie, like the plot was not compromised by Barracks. Barracks was a side character. There wasn't an emotional moment or a deep plot reveal or the intimidation of a villain where Barracks came in and ruined it. If you don't like Barracks' comedy, well, it sits in addition to the rest of the plot. Comedy is only bad when it's destructive to the plot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you definitely see that a lot more in like modern Ninjago, because there's a lot of humor, and some of the episodes are really funny and they're really good. Like there's an entire episode from one of the later seasons where they have like commercials, as the city is under siege from like the new big bad army, and it's friggin' hilarious. It's great. But then you also have some episodes where it's an entire episode about bad guys recounting the time they fought the ninja and exaggerating it, and it's in a completely new art style. And it's really controversial because you're interacting with these characters and they're not talking like they're usually talking. And then as
it's not animated. It's usually animated.
Yeah,
it's very like disassociated.
Like, I think my least favorite episode of Ninjago was during one of its better seasons, Master of the Mountain, where it was an entire episode animated in that new style. I don't know if it like frame for frame entirely in a new style, the 2D style, but it was about a character from that season and where he's from and how he teamed up with another group of characters and how they got to their current predicament. And if you showed me that episode in isolation, if you showed that episode to me without telling me it's Ninjago, I wouldn't have been able to tell you where it was from. It was tonally different. It was stylistically different. Like, there was nothing recognizable about that episode. And it completely friggin' threw me.
Yeah.
And of course, it also had humor. It did have comedy, but some of it was funny. Some of it was not. I think the character at the beginning fights like a lizard or a dragon or something. And it's kind of weird.
Right. Ultimately, like, comedy, it's a difficult thing to quantify objectively. You know, it is inherently very subjective. The only point I'm ultimately trying to make is do not be afraid of comedy. Comedy is okay. Comedy does not automatically destroy the thing you love. Comedy does not automatically make something bad. Comedy is only bad if it is destructive to the story. I think modern MCU has a lot of problems with that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of its movies. Sometimes the comedy is a bit too much, and it does damage the stakes. LJ's most recent MCU movie, Thor: Love and Thunder, the movie that he totally saw and didn't sleep through, is a good example of that.
Yep. Totally get you. Totally understand what you're getting at, bro. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Such a fascinating movie that I'd love to talk about, but we should probably move on. Probably
exactly.
Move from this point.
All your opinions would take too long.
Yeah, of course. I have thought so long and hard about what I think of Thor: Love and Thunder, a movie I definitely saw and did not sleep through, that it would take us too long, and we should move on to the next point.
Cool, I agree. So I think one of the other things, since I've spent so much time recently, like, bad-mouthing Ninjago, again, let me defend it for a minute. I think people give it a bad rap. They say it has too much comedy. They say its plot sucks. Its characters suck. I would disagree wholeheartedly. I think that Ninjago is in a dark age where I think it is being compromised by a need to fit a lot of comedy in. They shrunk the length of the episodes down to 11 minutes, and I think that's really harmed the ability to tell, like, stories, because they have to fit an arbitrary amount of, like, action and jokes into that short runtime, and it does harm things. But Ninjago's also on, what, 15 seasons? 16 to some people? And I'd say 10 of them didn't have that problem. 10 of them were fine. It's a very old thing. You can't really paint with broad strokes like that. I don't recall having many issues at all. Like Ninjago Skybound and the plot with Natakan, the djinn who wanted to, like, destroy all the ninja by making them, like, afraid and to wish away their pain and their fear and get sucked into an interdimensional realm where they would wither away and die. That's a pretty good season. That had emotional moments, emotional payoffs, character drama. It wasn't written for 4-year-olds.
Yeah. And heck,
the Toa Plastic, as he mentioned, the darkest season of Ninjago is also the one that had Dareth get brown power.
yeah.
Remember the brown power?
Yeah, the power that basically only made him go to the bathroom and light his hand on fire once. That was Sons of Garmadon, or no, that was Hunted.
Hunted, technically, yeah. But
Yeah, so which is perfect because I have a poster for Hunted that I can put on screen. Hunted was a very serious season, and so was its predecessor, Sons of Garmadon. You know what these seasons also had? They had the Brown Power thing. They also had the ninja, if I'm not mistaken, singing the Weekend Whip.
They did, yes, you're right. That was Sons of Garmadon.
Yeah. And it's like, those things didn't detract. They were character moments. They didn't detract from anything. And you do see that every so often. You see that in different things in Ninjago. But Ninjago also makes up for it in really, really solid character storytelling. You know, Hunted Sons of Garmadon had really good character writing for Lloyd, for instance. Master of the Mountain? Oh no. What did I say?
No, just I remember the days when Lloyd had good character.
Oh, yeah, okay, cool.
They were nice.
Yeah.
They were nice times.
Like, it had good character writing for Lloyd. Master of the Mountain. Basically, I mean, in my opinion, it put Cole on the map, finally. That is a controversial statement to make. Some people feel that he was already well established. I tend to disagree.
Nah.
But...
he sucked.
Shoot. We had friggin' character interactions and moments with Zane numerous different times. Seabound for Nia, Skybound for Jay. Kai was around multiple times.
Was around.
Stuff like that. Like, Ninjago did a really good job of juggling its characters and their motivations and fleshing them out and helping have them inform the world and vice versa. Ninjago, similar to Bionicle, had a large world that was interesting to investigate and to spend time in.
Yeah. Just because it's in a dark era right now, I don't really want to I don't want to entertain the claims that say it's always been bad. Because it has not been always bad. There's a lot to enjoy about it. And like for every moment we make in Bionicle, for every point we draw reference to in Ninjago, there's a comparable point in Bionicle. You know, I think of the moment in 2006 when, like, they're trying to stop the end of the world. The Anika are trying to save Mananui's life. The Toa Nuva are imprisoned or probably dead. They don't know. The Voyanui Matoran are imprisoned and on their way to being dead. They don't know. And Kongu is annoyed that Nuparu got the Mask of Flight because he, like, really wanted to fly. And it just kind of sucks that Nuparu got it. And he's, like, sad about that. And they make jokes back and forth, and they have quality banter. That moment in Power Play always stands out to me because it's characterization. Yeah, they feel like real people, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
I didn't feel it took away from the Doomsday stakes that Kongu wanted to fly. It just felt very in keeping with his character.
Yeah. No, it was just an accepted thing, and that was okay. Like, I think a lot of people tend to forget sometimes that the thing that Ninjago and Bionicle have in common is they are properties aimed at a young audience. Somehow this is a controversial thing to say, and I don't know how we got to that point.
Yeah.
But folks...
don't say the young audience word.
Folks, I'm going to dump a bucket of cold water on you. These stories are made to sell toys.
Both of them.
All of them. That doesn't invalidate them, but it is their expressed goal. We're fortunate that the people that are telling these stories do a very good job, by and large. Not all the time.
By and large.
But most of the time, they do with Bionicle, they did a great job. With Ninjago, up till recently, they did a really great job. But I think that remembering that helps contextualize what these are doing. when they make jokes, when they have comedy, that's a normal thing. It's because they're trying to make kids laugh. And there's nothing wrong with us enjoying that. That's perfectly fine. It's just, it means that we also look at it differently. Especially if we're coming at it from an outside perspective, we didn't grow up with it. Fortunately, Meso and I, we grew up mostly with, we grew up with Bionicle, and we kind of sort of grew up with with Ninjago a little bit.
Kind of, yeah.
And we can look back and appreciate the different narrative decisions that these two themes made. We can also, with a better understanding of what they were trying to do, with a better understanding of how writing is done, how storytelling is done, we can look back and we can critique these things. But if you're an outsider coming in, like let's say you grew up with Bionicle and you look at Ninjago, you could say, this is aimed at a younger audience. I grew up with this. Well, if you grew up with Bionicle, you're already in an older audience. That just straight up, you're already there. By and large, the Bionicle community is not young. There are very few, teenagers left in the Bionicle community. Not saying they don't exist, but there are very, very few. The majority of Bionicle fans...
to say it was the majority, yeah.
Yeah, the majority of Bionicle fans are in their 20s and 30s. Ninjago fans, however, are younger, by and large. And Ninjago aims at a younger audience than Bionicle did. That does not make it a bad thing.
It also does not make it incapable of having depth, nuance, or dark elements either.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Ninjago did a very good job at doing a similar thing that Bionicle did in terms of maturing with its audience.
Yes.
Because just as Bionicle had the Ignition trilogy, Ninjago had the Oni trilogy. And they're very comparable in terms of what they try to do and the tonal shift among them. And even before that, it had dark elements. Ninjago had its ice character sacrifices himself moment in year 3. It took Bionicle until year 7. Now, of course, Zane didn't fully die, but still a good moment. Still an emotional moment. It still made people feel something. Still brought tears to the eyes of some kids. And then throughout the years, it only got more so because you had emotional stakes, you had character development, you had dark things in the world, you had dark plot elements introduced. Now, Ninjago then did a tonal reboot, I would say, where in season 11 it kind of cycled back, and then it took a while to get back to that level of writing with Seabound, and even then, Seabound wasn't really dark except for the ending. But again, Ninjago is long running, so you can't discount the past just because things aren't the same way right now. You have to acknowledge it, otherwise you're not being intellectually honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Toe of Plastic puts it very well. They said in the Patreon chat, people will overinflate Bionicle's depth and darkness a lot. I see similar stuff in the Ninjago community with fans arguing over whether or not it's a kid's show. From what I can tell, it seems to come from insecurity and the perceived necessity to justify being interested in them as an adult. Excellent way of putting it. Anytime so you see... I don't even want to say that I haven't fallen victim to this too. Because I'm sure we have. In pitting our different themes against each other, right? Mm-hmm. Anytime you see theme versus theme and it isn't talking about the merits of either or, there's a good chance that it's coming from a place of insecurity. It's kind of that look in your neighbor's bowl, not to make sure you have more than them, but to make sure they have enough.
Right.
There's a lot more we could be doing to make sure that the Ninjago community has enough, that they're enjoying what they like, that we could then go into and be like, hey, this is really cool. It reminds me of what I really enjoyed.
I think that's a good way to put it. I do. And I think you're absolutely right. I think there are other things to consider as well. Like one thing we haven't talked about yet, but I think we should at least mention is G2.
Rats, I don't have a G2
Is
photo. Let me find one.
That's fun.
No, it's not
Yeah.
fine. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm
It's
screwing.
not even like a huge part of the conversation. It's just like I think it merits being addressed. Bionicle had a reboot that people didn't really jive with. It was thoroughly unpopular, was swiftly canceled, and is often like derided in the community for its storytelling. Why? Is it comedy? I wouldn't say so. This may be a hot take. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't really think the problem with G2 was comedy. None of the comedic moments really stood out to me as being particularly bad, and in fact, I would actually contest that some of the comedic moments in G2 are some of the best. One of the moments which really sticks out in my mind positively when I think of G2, this might be completely random, but it's when they were trying to get the door open to the ancient city and they were trying to figure out what to do and how to get it open. And Pohatu, I think, just like grabbed a giant like rock or something and just chucked it and completely like broke down the door. And the other Toa just kind of like walked past him and like looked at him like they're like freaked out by the
Like,
fact that he
really?
did that. And Pohatu just like stood there stoically
I
in
think
being his Batman self.
I think I even remember one moment in Journey to One where Pohatu he like powers up. He's like, I da da da, and he gets like this stone suit of armor, and he does whatever he needs to do, and then he powers down, and the other Toa are just looking at him like, okay, that happened. You went a
Yeah.
little far. You had a moment, and yeah, like those are funny things.
Yeah, I don't really think of those things as problems per se. G2 had a lot of problems, and when I think about them, I can realize a few of them. They were not comedy. When I think of G2's problems, I think of, you mentioned a while back, like making stuff for a younger audience. There's
Hmm.
other ways that manifests besides telling jokes. And I think one of the things that G2 suffered from was just its lack of depth. Comedy is fine when it is worked alongside moments of seriousness and a detailed plot and stuff to give tonal variety and make people feel real. G2 didn't really have that. It was very threadbare and lacked a lot of detail. So when it then had a bunch of jokes too, and when a lot of the character moments were jokes or like visual gags or something, people generally found it unsatisfying because there wasn't anything else there to run counter to it. There wasn't any variety to be had. If you weren't getting jokes, you weren't getting character moments at all, 9 times out of 10.
Yeah,
Um,
I think
this was
depth
the,
is a
you don't
really
need you don't need to put this up on the screen. I'm just posting it in the feature chat because that's what I was referencing.
Mhm. I definitely think that G2 suffered from lack of depth. I also agree with something Sakota said in the patron chat. He said, my hot take is that a big problem for G2 was that Ninjago just had better storytelling at the same time. And I 100% agree with that. I think that's very accurate because this is 2015. And what was Ninjago doing in 2015? Was it Possession?
Um, no, I think in 2015 it was Skybound
Oh, okay.
because I believe if my memory serves,
Well,
Tournament of Elements came out in 2014,
it's
and then
very
Possession was the summer of that year.
it is
I'm
very
wrong.
hard to remember for me like what happened in Ninjago during certain years, but it's very
Okay.
easy for me to remember what happened with Bionicle during certain
Yeah,
years.
you were correct. I was wrong. Rebooted was 2014. Tournament of Elements and Possession were 2015.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool.
Thanks.
Awesome. So, Tournament of Elements, which was the first big return to Ninjago after its near cancellation, which was very large in
Rebooted.
scale, introduced a ton of characters, expanded the world some more, expanded the world's history some more, and Possession, which further expanded the world and also focused on the history of another character, of Wu again, and focused on another large journey across Ninjago. These are very big things. There are a lot of character moments. And meanwhile, Bionicle, it just has 3 different retellings of the Toa meeting up, going to the tomb of Akimu, and Akimu solving their problems. It just...
Yeah.
There was very little depth, and there was very little storytelling. In all fairness, and I need to reread them, the novelizations did do a better job, but we didn't get the novelizations till very, very late.
Yeah.
So, I definitely think there is an argument to be made. There is a thing where Ninjago and Bionicle, G2 specifically, have been aimed at a younger audience, and they have not done a good job respecting that young audience. Because there is a thing that Bionicle did very early on, and that Ninjago has done multiple times, where they will aim at an older audience, and they will be more serious or mature, and that captures a younger audience. Because it's aspirational content. And then sometimes Ninjago will aim at a younger audience, and that's just catering to the age. And that's also okay. But Bionicle, G2 did not aim at a younger audience to cater to the age. They aimed at a younger audience and simplified everything that Bionicle was in concerns that the younger audience would not understand it well, or would have a difficult time engaging with it. That's wrong.
Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you.
I don't. I
You're making
can't.
a very good point.
I can't imagine you are. What happened?
You're making. I'm just laughing at Mother.
Okay, let's see.
I'm sorry.
Remember, the entire conflict of G2 started because Makuta put the Mask of Ultimate Power on... Oh, sorry. I get it now. Monerb says, remember the entire conflict of G2 started because Makuta put the mope on and just stood there until Akimu assaulted him because a very specific prophecy said he was going to do something.
It's so freaking funny because it's so true.
Yeah, that was not a good ending. Oof. Makuta, like, it's moping time.
It's moping time.
And then
I'm gonna mope all over the place.
And he moped all over this guy. Yeah.
We also had a YouTube comment from Toby Ekazap. Said, Merry Christmas Eve. Ninjago in 2015 was committing mass genocide to multiple dimensions.
That's true. That's very true.
Hello, Toby.
Toby, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas Eve. I hope you're doing well.
True.
But yeah,
and then Duder says G1 also had a lot of intrigue. You learned about the universe through the characters, myths, and stories. I agree. I would also argue Ninjago has a lot of that as well.
Yes.
With how they divvy out the exploration of the different regions and the broadening of the world and the characters you learn it from. And it, like Eldridge was saying, it really did start with Tournament of Elements. Rebooted kinda, but not really. Tournament of Elements introducing the concept of the other elemental masters, and then
Possession with the other realms.
Possession. Yes.
I mean, don't get me wrong. We saw other realms before Possession. Like, I don't want to mischaracterize that. We did see that, but Possession was where it got fleshed out.
Yeah, the 16 realms, and then the introduction of the realm crystal. You know, all of that stuff. And it was a big deal. It was interesting. It was seeing how the world got bigger over time.
Yeah.
Those are both good traits. G2 didn't really have much of that, sadly.
No. And yeah, I definitely think there's a separation to be had. There is aiming at a young audience, there is catering to a young audience, and then there is dumbing down for a young audience. And it's that last one.
The last one's what you want to avoid.
That's the last one that G2 did, and definitely where parts of Ninjago did toward the end there, especially. So just shallow characterization.
Yeah. So we've talked about comedy, we've talked about the fleshing out of the world and the depth. I think what are some other good things we could talk about? Talk about characters.
Yep, characterization. I think Ninjago and Bionicle differ here in that Bionicle goes for cast a large net, and they capture a lot of really interesting characters that you don't spend a lot of time with overall. It definitely tried to equal out for maybe 3 or 4 groups and spend time on those, but that's a lot of characters, and that you don't get as much time as you might want delving into them. But Ninjago definitely went for a more let's hit the bullseye with a small group and focus on them a lot.
I would say to its long-term detriment.
Perhaps.
Because they've become so attached to them. They're like scared to move on.
True, but we say that having grown up with a large cast of characters. And there's a detriment to that too, that it makes it hard to really grow attached to or identify with certain characters. Because you only have certain bits and pieces from them. Like, we only know so much about Helrix, for instance. You know? We didn't spend a whole lot of time with her.
Yeah, even the Toa...
Yeah, I was going to say, even the Toamata sometimes, you would struggle to identify characteristics. People still don't understand the difference between Pohatu and Liwa's characters. It kills me. It drives me nuts.
They both seem like friendly.
Oh my gosh, yep, there it is. Nope. Pohatu is friendly. Liwa is cynical. And Kopaka is antisocial. These are how these are divvied up. So Pohatu is your buddy, your pal. He's like, hey man, you know, he's the head of the football team. He's like, hey, come on, let's get in there. Let's win, team. Go team. Liwa's like, yeah, and we're gonna walk outside and trip on our face right out the gate. And Kopaka's like, I don't want to be here. That's the difference. But because you don't spend as much time with those characters as you do with the ninja, it's harder to identify those things.
True. Sakota made another good point in the patron chat. He was like, I think one of the biggest things I can hand to Bionicle over Ninjago is that it has a through line with the whole Awakening Maranui plot, while Ninjago is a bit all over the place because of the many soft reboots. That is absolutely true.
Yes, I'll absolutely agree with that.
If we're being honest, like that is a point that I do unilaterally prefer about Bionicle, with the exception of maybe 05. Everything follows along a consistent through line, feels necessary, feels warranted. Ninjago, it has not gone in a straight line. It's gone all around in 10 different circles, then spiraled off into like 2 parallel tracks, then came back together, then formed a U shape, then did a 27 spirals, and then went off a cliff.
And I think that goes to show... I think that's a result of... Maybe that is the reason for why these two themes focus on characters in 2 different ways. Like Bionicle has a large character roster over a great, massive universe because there is a through line, and you have these like 3 groups of characters trying to fulfill that. Ninjago, on the other hand, has characters in a world you're focusing on, and things either happen to them or they cause things to happen to the world. In Bionicle, you're focusing on a large adventure. In Ninjago, you're focusing on characters going on adventures. And there are pros and cons to both of those. And it all boils down to character delivery and character interaction and involvement and focus. I wouldn't necessarily say either or is better than the other. I just prefer the through line quest. I prefer
Yes.
when there is a goal at the end and I get to join those characters on that journey and learn about them through that. And I don't think it's wrong that Ninjago doesn't do that. They have their own pros by focusing on their characters existing in the world, because then we, in some instances, get to learn alongside them.
That being said, they need to stop. They need to stop now. Ditch the ninja, please, God. I'm serious. Ditch them. It's very important at this point. I do think Ninjago has taken it to the point it's a little too far. The Wild Brain era, the last like 3 years, they're not writing character-centric stories anymore. They're writing stories where the protagonists could just be anyone else. And it's annoying that they're not the ninja, because I'm so used to them being written with characters in mind that, like, Prime Empire could have literally just been anyone.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a whole other discussion.
Henfrig in the YouTube live chat says, Bionicle is Biological Chronicle. It's one story. Ninjago is Ninja Go. You just got to go and do stuff. That's a great summarization. That's a very good summarization.
I love that. That's good. Dark Nova 3529 says, people say G2 is mishandled. No, it wasn't handled at all.
What are you talking about? I think we got some good handling at the end. We got to handle that giant Journey to One Makuta model.
Oh, the one that was really totally released as a set?
Yeah. Very expensive
That's so epic.
But no, so I think there was someone else I wanted to say, or at least touch upon, unless you had anything else, Meso.
Not along that train of thought.
Okay, cool. Can we talk about the ending real quick?
Yes.
For the respective themes.
Cool.
Okay. Let's very briefly touch upon... I want to go ahead and touch upon the through line, the thing in the endings that had been built up to almost that entire time. The entire time of their respective final arc or final battle. In Ninjago, it's Oni Lloyd. It is Lloyd discovering that he has a specific, like a secret power that he can tap into, and he can become strong, and it'll help him beat the bad guys. In G1, Bionicle Generation 1, it's the golden armor, which Tahu has to don, and it'll do something to help them out. We have no idea what it is. So, I think it's very interesting, the dichotomy between these two. First of all, it's a golden form. It's a form that'll help the hero defeat the bad guys. And it was built up to for that entire final plot line. And there's one more point I had. There's one more similarity, but I can't remember what it is. Yeah. Either way, they're very similar in... Oh, yeah, it had only been introduced in that final arc. That final, like, season, story focus.
And both are derided as being somewhat inelegant solutions because of that. But, that kind of helps put them on an even playing field.
Ooh, Sakota has a really good point. Also, it's a form that lets them use the bad guy's powers, which is great
Nice.
Point. So, these are very similar instances. And people weren't entirely content with how Bionicle went about it, because it was kind of seen as a Deus Ex Machina that was built up, suddenly introduced, and built up and used, and its utilization was just kind of weird. The golden armor in Bionicle allows Tahu to destroy solid antidermis, which is a very specific thing.
Yeah.
It makes sense when you think about it, because Makuta were at one point solid antidermis. They just mutated. They evolved beyond that. Excuse me. They evolved beyond that, but Rakshi didn't. And so functionally it worked out so that Tahu destroyed every single friggin' Rakshi, the backbone of the Makuta's army. And because Makuta creates all of the Rakshi and has a mental connection to all of them, that sudden loss gives Makuta a pause and gives Matanui just enough time to save the day. The usage of that is so circumstantial. you have, like, everything has to line up very well for that to pan out the way that it had to. And for a lot of people, that feels a little shallow. It feels like, okay, well, it's very sudden. It doesn't feel quite as earned. But, like, I guess the building blocks are there, right? And Tahu then also becomes super strong.
Nothing is contradictory, like, logically about it. Its only issues are in its execution, which I guess is something shared. It's like, why did it happen now? It's a little contrived. That scenario played out exactly how it did. It said, why does he need to be in his Mata form, etc.
Yeah. So, that said, fair enough. It happened. I think it does work. It has some things that make it feel make you feel like, that could have gone in a different direction that would have fit a bit nicer, you know? Right. Ninjago has Lloyd's Golden Oni form, which is, they spend almost the full season building up to it. At least a full half of the season. A full 14 episodes? A lot of time. Sakota puts it well. It's clunky, not offensive. Ninjago, the Golden Oni form, is built up for multiple episodes. The character's told, hey, you need to do this. You have to do this. It will help us. The form gets, how long was it, Meso? 20 seconds of screen time after like 14 episodes of build-up? Yeah. Lloyd
does nothing.
He assumes the form. He makes progress with it. He starts battling the Overlord. And then he looks at a reflection of himself and says, nope, not doing it, and gets out of it. Sakota says,
Lloyd had done something in that form to basically contribute to the ending, like if he had weakened the Overlord, if he had breached a defense, then people wouldn't really complain too much about the 20 seconds or the 15 seconds or whatever, because it would have actually mattered. He didn't really do anything. He would have done something had he continued, but he stopped before he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it just completely, I think we feel, wasted everyone's time. And it wasn't even a good character moment for Lloyd. In fact, in a lot of ways, it's an antithesis to Lloyd's character arc and building him up to accept that side of him, to accept that Oni is a component of destruction, but that doesn't always mean that it's for bad reasons. It just reinforced that Oni are bad.
With Lloyd in the sense that, it's because he was scared of his reflection in season 11, but it runs counter to his character growth, which would be challenging that perspective and overcoming his fear.
Yeah. So there's a comment here by Retroaction UK in the YouTube live chat. Even though the Yesterday quest and the powers that be never concluded, the ending was still more satisfying than the end of the Journey to One. So there's a distinction that I make to people, and that I think really helped me contextualize how I felt about Bionicle G1's ending. G1 ended with Journey's End. The book, the comic, and the Matanui saga. That is the end of G1. It is Tahu on the beach holding the Ignika, saying it's time to move on. Yesterday Quest and Powers That Be are just continuations. They are stories in the world that go beyond that point. So Bionicle has an ending, but it also has some stories that continue on. I've since grown to accept that they didn't end. It's like, fair enough. It is what it is. But
I was torn up about it when I was younger, definitely. But, it's just something you got to come to terms with in the modern era.
Mm-hmm. And see, I've been able to retroactively apply that feeling of Bionicle ended here to Ninjago to feel satisfied, because Ninjago has had multiple ending points. it had an ending point at the end of, like, what is it, Legend of the Golden Ninja? I'm not totally
Yeah.
sure. The Stone Army arc, where Lloyd beats the Overlord Dragon, is like, we're good now. Yay, my father's back. And then it had kind of
That, that ending was good. There'll always be a need for a ninja.
yeah, it was a good, solid way to conclude. And they were able to continue it. And another ending point would be the end of the Oni arc. A little rockier, but you know what? Has some good sentimental
Certainly
value.
better. Certainly better than crystallized. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have crystallized. So there are good moments in Ninjago to feel satisfied about its conclusion. Doesn't mean you have to ignore the end of crystallized. It's just Ninjago had an ending. Also, the story of the world continued beyond it.
Exactly. It's a very good point. I feel like G1's ending suffered from a lot of convenience, but ultimately most of it made sense. I liked it a lot for what it was trying to do. It was just very convenient, and fundamentally, I didn't really buy the explanations for what was going on. Like, in terms of the shattering. The shattering was a neat idea, but I feel like it made a lot more sense symbolically than what it actually represented, which was just the planet split into three, and two of the chunks were perfectly shaped, and like people were living on the moons.
Yeah,
I
but
didn't really like that as much.
I can accept that because keep in mind the planet was entirely kept together by energized protodermis.
No, I know.
That's a weird thing.
It's just
weird things happen.
fixing the shattering being pulling the planets back together
Well,
and slotting them back in their respective holes. And I don't feel the visual, like, because when I was younger and I visualized it in my head, I was like, okay, so it's three planets of like relatively even sizes that were not perfectly spherical shaped. So I'm like, they were kind of fragmented. They weren't spheres. Maybe they were even the shape of the logo, and you had to fit them back together to make a circle. And then when I actually saw the visual, and it was like two M&Ms fitting into like I don't know, like a ball of cookie dough or something. It didn't really work as well for me.
I don't know. I didn't mind it. I think it worked fine because as much as it is symbolic, as much as it's actual, there is a lot of inherent symbolism in that. And sometimes actions matter as much because of their symbolism, what they represent to you. Doing something is important because of what it means. And let's be honest, would you not want, like, let's say planet Earth, Europe, the whole European continent, and the North American continent rip out of the planet and start floating around the planet, but these continents are their own places, like they're their own worlds, lacking in the resources they have and depriving the planet Earth of the resources they have? Would you not want to bring that back together for the people that are still on Earth?
I do. I just think the way they did it realistically should have just killed everyone. Pulling the planets back together with gravity.
I mean, yeah,
that would have just caused another, like, that would have been like dinosaurs getting, killed by meteor impact levels.
sure,
Except way worse.
I mean, yeah, for humans, sure. I don't know. I think that might be a little bit much. I think it's fine the way it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, the moral of what I was just saying was I have some issues with the execution, but there aren't any like plot holes. They're preferential things. Everything described as it happened generally made sense. I think it suffered a little bit from Tahu and Takanuva being absent from the story for so long, because like even before 2008 they were gone for a few years. 2008. Takanuva really didn't get that much to do. He had his little side quest, but he was barely in the actual action by the time he actually arrived. And then him and Tai were supposed to like shepherd the ending of the story, but it mainly made sense. It was in keeping with the goals. It was fine. It was not a betrayal of anything. Would I have done some things differently? Yes, but it was a difficult situation to manage, having to integrate the Glatorian characters and
Yeah.
pay homage to the MU characters. It was difficult. Crystallized is basically just an insult. It's just one big slap in the face, and I don't think it was done maliciously, but it has that energy basically. Like we mentioned that on the podcast. Like, do we think the team would sabotage their own ending? No, but boy, does it sure feel like it was done with a lack of care and concern. Um, it very much felt like, okay, well, we need to have some lip service to elements about Ninjago that people like. We need to have elements of Ninjago. What do we need? We need a four-headed dragon. We need Lloyd versus the Overlord, but we can't have him be Uniform because that's scary for kids. We have to redeem Harumi because, I mean, happiness, fun time, everybody is forgiven for kids. Nothing makes any sense. I still don't know what actually happened in that final episode. It's been months of reflection, and I still don't know. Unlike in G1, where I was given an answer and I just didn't fully agree with it, Crystallized didn't even begin to try. It's like something, 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 corrupting the weapons, something, something, something. Powers are gone for some reason, but don't worry, they'll totally be back soon.
Yeah.
Just wholly unsatisfying.
Yeah. That said, should you let Crystallized's ending dictate how you enjoy Ninjago? No. You should still enjoy Ninjago. You should still invest yourself in its world and its characters, what it has to offer, in the same way that Bionicle not having a conclusion to certain serials doesn't invalidate how it ended,
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's still so much to enjoy, to get invested in. It has so much to offer. It's a world you get to enjoy and inhabit and explore. Characters you get to go on adventures with and enjoy spending time with. Also, it's not the end. Ninjago will continue. It's not going to just stop here like Bionicle did. Nothing is final. And everything is taken in aggregate in hindsight. So,
yeah. And I think with that, we could begin moving towards our final conclusion.
All right, go for it.
Do you agree?
I agree.
All right. So the moral of the story here and the topic is Bionicle versus Ninjago. So what is our conclusion? Well, as I promised, we're going to give you an answer, and the people on the other side will have to suffer and be publicly humiliated because naturally we must pick an answer ultimately. And our answer is both are fine, and the people who feel the need to constantly put the other one down to inflate their own ego and sense of self-importance and validation and liking the things they like are the real losers. That's what I'll say ultimately. The topic of Bionicle versus Ninjago doesn't really matter. It's an interesting thought experiment to discuss the two and the differences, and I think we've proven there is a discussion to be had. Preferences, things one did above the other, things that may have worked for certain people but not for others. It's fine to have preferences, but to disparage or attack or put the other one down, or to try to measure your enjoyment of something by how much the other thing actually sucks and is the devil's spawn, is generally unproductive, and it just kind of makes you seem very insecure, very petty, very shallow, and you didn't lose the degree of understanding that you're just talking about a toy line made for kids at the end of the day. Skoda says the real Bionicle versus Ninjago were the haters that got mad along the way. So
Yeah,
true.
pretty much.
You're so right. There are things about Bionicle that are better, obviously. I'm a Bionicle fan. I like Bionicle a lot. I take issue with some things in Ninjago that aren't, how I enjoyed. I like how Bionicle planned its thing out from word go. I like how Bionicle had 4 different groups of main characters. I like how people got chopped in half in Bionicle. That was fun. I liked universe ending stakes. I liked characters that died and actually stayed dead. You know, there are things about Bionicle I prefer. There's things about Ninjago I prefer too. I connect more with the characters in Ninjago than I've ever connected with any of the characters in Bionicle by sole virtue of more time spent with them. I don't have a favorite character in Bionicle because, as much as it sounds like a diss, I don't really feel like any of them are fleshed out enough or rise enough in the ranks or have enough screen time to really stand out among the others. I like groups. I like the Paraka. I like the Anika, but they're only present for about 2 years. I like the Toamata, but they were gone for about 6 years. There's issues. Ninjago doesn't really have that. Ninjago gives a lot of fleshing out to its cast. Ninjago has a huge world. Ninjago has more alternate realms or alternate dimensions, for better or worse, than we ever got to explore in Bionicle. I know some people don't like that, but I do. I like alternate realms. They're fun. There are, and then finally, when you're trying to get someone into Ninjago, it's so much easier because you don't have to have a flow chart about how to experience the content, because Bionicle had 87 different forms of media. And you don't have to point, well, read this in this order, but then don't read this because it has partially non-canon information and it overlaps with this other thing, which you need to read first or watch first. But then also Monog and the Borok Swarms, those are semi-canon, and then details about them will later get contradicted by other material. And then Greg answered questions as well, which are cataloged in the Biosector 01 wiki that you have to get the full story. But then on the flip side of that, if you don't like the Ninjago show, you're basically out of luck because Ninjago's creators are afraid. They're shivering, at night, rocking up and down in their beds with the existential dread of making anything but the show canon. No, it can't be anything but the show. I'm exaggerating slightly. I know some of the books are canon, but point is, there's pros and cons to each. Does it make either one of them trash? No. They both do things very well. They both make people happy. They've both cultivated diverse fan bases and communities. And they're both interesting story themes that do a lot to flesh out their universes, give interesting character moments, etc., etc., etc. Neither are terrible, and certainly not because of jokes.
Yeah.
And if you think that, you're not viewing it with a big enough lens. You're focusing on one element that really doesn't matter as much as you think it matters. That's all I got. What do you think?
I agree. And I definitely think that we're at a point where we can just enjoy whatever we enjoy. And we don't need to worry about what the other person enjoys. And we can just compare what we both enjoy. We can enjoy Ninjago for this. We can enjoy Bionicle for that. And we can have preferences. Having a preference is totally acceptable. And having reasons for that preference is totally acceptable. And not liking something, for whatever reason you might not like it, because the thing you enjoy, in your opinion, does it better, also fine. You can enjoy Ninjago because it's easier to get into, because it has more focused character interactions and characterizations. You can enjoy it more for some of its lighter tone, some of its humor, its levity. That's totally fine. You can enjoy Bionicle for looking the way that it does with the specialized pieces. You can enjoy it for some of its darker tones. You can enjoy it for its large, expansive world that you get to partake in an adventure in. These things are fine. They can exist equally alongside each other. That's totally okay. And to say one or the other is worse because of X, Y, or Z is reductive. Just say you have a
Yep.
preference. I've got a preference to Bionicle. I enjoy it more. It's what I grew up with, though, so I'm biased inherently. But I can articulate the reasons why I enjoy the things that Bionicle did over Ninjago. But that doesn't invalidate Ninjago, and it doesn't mean that I like Ninjago less because I like Bionicle. It just means I really like Bionicle.
It's a difference between having a preference and trying to like put down or devalue or destroy another community's sense of like fulfillment in their hobby. Basically,
I
it's generally
definitely...
unproductive, and it's the age old thing that like people feel they need to go to war against that which they feel threatened by.
Yeah. I definitely think there can be a lot of fun in like competing with the another community like Ninjago and Bionicle if you're doing
I
it
agree.
constructively and having a good time. Like when we had the 90th anniversary vote and Bionicle was a part of it, it's some of the most fun I've had in the Bionicle community in a very long time because I got to make all these memes and these images and these videos and just kind of ham it up and just screw around.
Yeah, no,
like...
that was very good. There are points you can do that are not destructive or toxic, and a lot of people do it in very constructive ways. I don't want to say everybody is a bad egg,
Of
but we've
course
seen
not.
more than our fair share. And it's not just Ninjago either. People viewed it to Hero Factory as well. People hated Hero Factory on the sole merit of it being Bionicle's immediate successor. And they were like, they wanted to like basically excise anyone that liked it from the community. It was heretical to enjoy Hero Factory because it got Bionicle canceled, etc., etc., which factually was not the case.
Now, Chima.
Yeah, Chima just sucks. Chima is bad. We can talk about Chima. Chima's the worst.
I can't.
It.
Listen, if you like Chima, like we've been saying, more power to you. Enjoy what you like. I can't do it. I cannot do it. And
if you want to see us react, if you want to see us react and rewatch to the Legends of Chima episodes, Eljay and I have seen it before. Sakota saw most of it, and we're watching it with some people in our group who've never seen it over on our new channel, Keep the Peace, and that will be premiering very soon. It's some of the funniest stuff ever. Just rewatching Chima and realizing how absolutely terrible it really is.
In our opinion.
In my opinion.
Yep. We believe that it's not very good, but you don't have to.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not going to put you down for liking it as much as I joke. That's basically it. Eljay, I know you want to get going. Do you want to skip Q&A this week?
We can do 4 questions as long as they're short. 2 from YouTube, 2 from Patreon.
All right, go now. It's going to be first come, first serve, even if you ask good questions. So if anybody has any questions about this subject, about us, about just what we're doing, bro, Sakota had that like ready.
So good.
All right. The first one comes from Sakota in the patron chat, who asks, did you read any of the Ninjago comics/books written by Greg? And if so, do you think his writing was affected by the universe he was writing in?
I haven't.
Maybe with Dark Island as an exception, since he got a very detailed outline for that.
Yep. Nope. I have not read the others. I have possessed one of the others, but I did not end up reading it. I think Haley actually has it now, so next time I'm in that neck of the woods, then I'll try and dig it up and look through it. But
it definitely would be fun. I have not read any of them either, unfortunately. The only one I've read, I've read Greg's Hero Factory books, like The Amazing Story, The Doom Box, but I've not read anything but The Dark Island, which we participated in for our live reading, where we all voiced the characters, which was pretty epic. And then we have Sir Lojon, who asked the question earlier. He said, how do you feel about people who claim that those who liked Bionicle or other LEGO story themes should feel satisfied by Ninjago, even though they may not like it, like myself?
I don't know.
That's an interesting point.
I don't know if I would ever use the word you should feel satisfied by Ninjago, because this is a common critique Ninjago receives, that it does a lot that might take away from the potential of new original LEGO themes. Like I had a castle season that might have taken away from a castle theme. It had an underwater season that might have taken away from another underwater theme. It had a ghost theme, might have taken away from ghosts.
Might have taken away from... Oh yeah, Lego Ghosts,
no, no.
my favorite thing.
Lego had Monster Hunters. It's a Halloween-esque. Fudge.
Sure.
Thank you, Sakota. Hidden Side.
Oh man,
It had a
R.I.P.
ghost theme.
Yeah,
So,
you poor.
and I think there is merit to that argument that because Ninjago is doing these things, that they're touching upon these themes, Lego is less inclined to put the time, the energy, the money, the effort into original themes. So I'll agree that there is some merit to that argument. I think there is a legitimacy there in the same way that you've never seen Hero Factory and Bionicle in the same room. You know? That said, I also think that we don't know enough about what Lego has determined to sell and not sell. We don't know if the reason that they aren't bringing back a full-fledged castle theme again is because they've determined that's a lot of money and time and effort and marketing to pour into a castle theme when they could just tap into the Ninjago theme to give fans of both Ninjago and Castle a taste of both. You don't even necessarily need to enjoy Ninjago to look at a set and be like, oh, that's really cool. I like what they did there. And appreciate some of the things that they're doing. So if people are telling you you should just watch and enjoy Ninjago, like you're saying, Sir Lojan, I don't think that's necessarily fair or accurate. You don't need to. But I don't think there's anything... I think that Ninjago right now, the way that it exists currently, is... It's a way to have your cake and eat it too. You can do something interesting with Ninjago that harkens back to a different theme or atmosphere, but not necessarily risk a lot of money and shelf space and time and dedication to potentially something that isn't going to be fruitful, and then tank the chance of that coming back in the future.
Right. I think the other side to address, which I think, he maybe was what he was aiming towards, was more for the story side of things. Because I have said something in the past along the lines of, for people who are looking for a story theme to fill the void of Bionicle, you should watch Ninjago. You should give Ninjago a try. It has realms, it has elemental powers, it has characters, it has depth to its story. But I think the core difference there is telling someone they should check out something versus they should enjoy something. That's the big difference. I feel like a lot of people write it off. They write it off because, oh, it's ninjas on spinning tops, fighting skeletons on motorcycles. It doesn't have a story. It doesn't have an interesting, component to it. It has no depth. It's written for 2-year-olds. Kind of like the stupid person on Twitter, which we're referencing. The theme has depth. You just need to give it a chance. You need to view it with a fresh, unbiased eye, and you may find something to enjoy about it. The key word is may. Anyone who's telling you that you should enjoy it on sole virtue of it being a story theme, I mean, they have no right to dictate what you do or do not enjoy based on personal preference. And if people are actually telling you that, then I'd say that's fairly arrogant, and it's trying to prescribe something that they enjoy onto you. If you give it a chance, at least partially, and you've watched a few episodes, it just doesn't seem like it's for you. That's totally fair. There are differences, like we've discussed on this episode. They're not 1-to-1. Someone who liked Bionicle is not guaranteed to like Ninjago. It is made with a slightly younger audience in mind. The comedy styling is slightly different. It's real people. It's not, cool robots. The plot, I would say, has some more issues. Like Sakoto was saying, the plot was not planned out from the start. It's had a lot of soft reboots. It's had a lot of like retconny stuff. Characters who die basically never stay dead. There's very little permanent stakes. It's not a 1-to-1. And if those things aren't for you, or if you just don't like the tone, or if it just isn't funny, or if you don't like the art style, that's another big one. VAR really struggled to get into Ninjago because of the art style, if I recall correctly. It just kind of puts some people off, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
It's not going to be for everybody. All I would ask is that people at least give it a chance before making that determination. I would say at least watch a little bit, which isn't even really a fair thing to say because Ninjago has changed a lot. You can't really watch an episode from the first season and get an accurate representation of its tonality, and especially not its production value based on modern Ninjago. But not everybody wants to watch 17 seasons of something to give it a chance. So you have to be reasonable there and be like, okay, at least check out a little bit of it. And Sir John follows up. For me, it's definitely that Bionicle is more of a setting than a story, as opposed to Ninjago, which is more of a story than a setting. Neither is bad. One is just my cup of tea. And that tracks.
Yeah, I definitely say also consider. There is the chance, and I don't have anything to confirm this, of course, but consider, if you will, that Ninjago doing a bunch of different things with different themes, like castle, water, ghosts, isn't so much it's taken away from those other themes, as much as, and this is the way I look at it, it's allowing us to enjoy some of those themes that otherwise just would not have had a chance to come back in the way we'd want them to.
True.
So to me, I look at it as this is nice, but not everyone's going to agree with that. Heck.
And
no, go ahead.
I know even internally we've had some disagreement on that.
Yeah. Wait, we have? You and I?
No, just us and TTV.
Oh, okay.
I remember X had some very strong opinions about it, if memory serves.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But yeah, Small Hydrogen in the YouTube chat said, my sister, a Ninjago fan, says she dislikes Bionicle since the characters have no soul and are cliche, despite the fact that she hasn't read nor seen any of the story.
Yeah, that's stupid. That's really dumb.
Yeah, I mean, just
there's no two ways
have her
about
listen to this podcast.
I'm sure she will.
I don't know.
And then just to break my own rules, Toa Plastic was like, have you ever noticed the plot similarities between Hunted and Bionicle 09? Yeah, there's some plot similarities, but there's also a lot of like obvious like aesthetic similarities. To the point where, and this is a little funny bit of trivia I think we've mentioned before, but I'm not sure in this context. VAR was really big in Ninjago for a bit. VAR was making Ninjago content. VAR was making Ninjago series. VAR was making Ninjago music parodies. VAR was on Ninjago Cast weekly. And you may have noticed after a certain point, VAR just disappeared, never came back, and ergo wasn't really a part of the channel anymore, as we were primarily doing Ninjago content at that point. Hunted takes like 90% of the blame for that. I would say the other 10% would be Lego like copyright striking his Ninjago TLDR series, and he lost motivation from having that be deleted from YouTube. But Hunted is the reason why VAR dropped off from liking Ninjago, just because it was in a desert, and he didn't like Barra Magna because it was in a desert, and he also dropped off from Bionicle in 09, which conveniently it ended right after. So but he was already like dropping off from it because of that.
It's super funny that he dropped off in 09 too, because VAR is like, he is the guy who was the first person outside of Lego, like in the world, to get the Toa, like the Titan Motunui set, like the coveted holy grail of 2009 sets. So it's friggin' hilarious.
He just doesn't like the desert, man. I don't know. It's like,
he does not.
I don't think it's really like justified. It's just his preference. He just doesn't like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of similarities, plot, aesthetic, etc.
All right.
Did we get any YouTube comments?
Let me see real quick. So we're just going to go 2.
Toby said one. Said, if one was to be continued, which would you prefer? I mean, I presume you're talking about Bionicle or Ninjago. I mean,
we're Bionicle fans, so
we're Bionicle fans, but do we want Bionicle back? We've had this conversation before. It changes every year. How are we feeling at present?
eh. I'm down for Ninjago to keep going.
Yeah. We're not really as into the Bionicle community as we used to be due to a bunch of stuff that happened. And I have very serious doubts about the capability of LEGO to handle a Bionicle revival in a way that the community would actually be receptive to. And that's like it's like 30% because of LEGO, 30% because of extraneous factors that neither party can control, and 30% because of the community not wanting to compromise what they want out of a Bionicle reboot, and ergo being disappointed by everything LEGO could try to do.
Yeah.
In fact, now that I said it out loud, 40% is that. 30% are the rest.
Yep. Yeah. I think Bionicle could be done.
I'd like it back.
Yeah, I think Bionicle could be done.
I'd like it.
No, you finish.
I'd like it back myself. I don't know if other people would. That's all. Sorry.
Yep, no. I think Bionicle could come back very well. I don't think the Bionicle community would accept it very well in the way that it would return, because the nature of LEGO has changed. And you will never see Bionicle return in the way Bionicle existed ever again. You'll never see these specialized pieces comprising entire constructions ever again.
Yeah. That's the extraneous factors I mentioned. Like it's just changed, you know. And you'll never see Bionicle done in the way that people would want it done, because again, a lot of the reasons people liked it in the first place were accidental, or at least not something that LEGO was trying to do. Everything Templar did was a fluke, and it was because of their own creative ingenuity. Almost everything. It was because of their own creative ingenuity. The Monog was basically counter to what LEGO wanted for Bionicle. They wanted very little focus on the Matoran, the Toa to be the main people who did things. You know, like that's just not the spirit of what a lot of people like about it. So, this is what it is.
Yep.
And so, by technicality, I would have to say Ninjago, but I mean, I'm not one of the people that would complain about everything, so I probably would like a Bionicle reboot, so long as it wasn't done like G2.
Yeah.
LEGO, I just don't think it's a good idea.
If you want to bring Bionicle back, you want to like make it a full theme, we can help you. We're adults. We know what would go very well. So let's talk.
There you go. And it looks like the final question was from Jake Stillwell in the YouTube chat, who said, which group would win in a fight, the Toa Mata or the Ninja?
Oh, gosh.
I don't think it's even a question, is it?
Oh, it's
the
always
Ninja
a question,
are like regular people. The Toa are like 7-foot tall robots.
It's always a question, dude.
But like, how? No, for real, it's not a question. The Toa, okay, so if the Ninja attacked the Toa, they would just absorb their elements, unless they like did counter matches and strategized, and like Kai went after Kopaka, you know. And then if the Ninja tried to physically attack the Toa, they would like break their arms because they're robots.
But what about Cole? What if he uses his lava arms?
Use your lava arms against Tahu.
What if he did? He uses lava arms, and then what if Spinjitzu burst?
But what situation would they do a burst in? They would have to trap the Toa underground, or in a volcano, or in a lightning storm, or in a blizzard. No, but actually, these are interesting matchups. Okay, so Kopaka causes a blizzard, and then Zane does a spinjitzu burst on Kopaka
Yeah.
because of the blizzard.
And it's like Lloyd, his power is energy. We don't even know what that would do to the physiology of a Toa.
Potentially, he could like overload their circuits or something.
Same with electricity with Jay. The Toa don't have an electric like counter. Like Tomata don't have a teammate. It's always a question.
Not
Listen, I'm sorry, Sakota, but listen. Sorry.
Official Lego media says energy.
The power of green there. So, but yeah, there's a question. There's reason why it is a question. The ninja aren't out, but I personally agree with you, Meso. I think the Toa would win. They're just inherently physically stronger, and the ninja can produce elements. The Toa can control them.
Yeah.
Tahu can suck the heat out of an area. Gali, I don't know if she can change the temperature of water, but Kopaka can freeze water. I mean, so can Zane.
I'm just remembering in Rebooted when the ninja were fighting the Ninjroids, wasn't there a scene where like they tried to like punch them or something, and like Jay hurt his hand or something?
I don't remember.
Because I vaguely recall at least one point where that did happen, and so they had to fight them at range with like elemental powers and stuff. So like the Toa would just be that, except physically stronger and with built-in like Venge Stone, basically, because they could just absorb their elements, except for Jay and Lloyd.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm gonna give it to the Toa on this one. Ninja with their mechs and vehicles, though. Yeah, that's more interesting, because a ninja mech would probably dwarf a Toa.
No, easily.
Be like an army of Marindars. Unless they get in the Exo-Toa, but then they lose their powers. So, okay, this is an interesting battle. We should do like a death battle style video at some point about this.
I would love to do a death battle style video. If yes, I am totally down. The Toa Mata. So here's the next question though: Toa Mata versus the ninja, or the Toa Nuva versus the ninja?
To be fair, it would probably need to be the Nuva. It would need to be the Nuva, and it would need to be the most recent iteration of the ninja.
Okay.
If you include like bursts and stuff.
All right.
In their
strongest form of each. I'm totally down to do that. If anyone listen, if there are any other groups, sans a few, you know who you are. Don't ever talk to us again. If there are any other groups in the Bionicle community, and if there are any other groups in the Ninjago community that want to collaborate on this, let us know. Let's do this. Let us do.
That sounds like a fun idea.
We want to host the Ninjago, the Ninja, 6 Ninja versus the Toa Nuva death battle. And we'd call it a brick battle.
Oh, quality idea. Before someone plagiarizes it.
Yeah, we'll just have to do it the best we can.
True. Would Takanuva be included? It's a good question.
Takanuva would only be included.
But there's no.
Takanuva only gets included if Wu is included, and they are both technically members of the team. But I wouldn't want to include him. I'd want to keep it 6-6.
I kind of agree. All right. Well, that's a good ending, I think, to this episode of Knack and Jay. We have more ideas, more things we'll be talking to you about soon. Potentially, maybe, you know. A Knack and Jay on an elephant sounds pretty fun to me. The elephant in the room, maybe several. But for now, we will bid you adieu. LJ, would you hit us with the plugs?
Yes. So thank you all so very much for watching. If you're interested in continuing the conversation, head on over to the TTV message boards at board.ttvchannel.com. You need to be 13 years or older and follow the rules, and you'll have a good time. Also, head on down to the comments and leave your thoughts and opinions on the conversation we had today. Make sure you also hit the subscribe button and like the video. We appreciate any and all interaction. If you're interested in supporting the channel further, head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/the TTV channel, where you can donate as low as $1 a month and join our exclusive Patreon Discord server, where we air all of our episodes, or at least record them here. We don't always air them. And if you are interested in more system content, including Monkey Kid, Ninjago, as well as others, including our podcasts Brickfeed, NinjagoCast, and MonkeyCast, head on over to our new YouTube channel, Keep the Peace. And I think that's it.
Perfect. So I hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas and a wonderful, wonderful holiday. We should have another video for you coming very soon. I don't want to make any promises just because I'm not sure if it's going to end up being live streamed.
You'll have to tell me what that is later. I don't remember what you're talking about.
The thing we're doing tomorrow. But yeah, I'll tell you later.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm tracking. We're good.
You're tracking.
Yep.
Whether it's live streamed or not, we'll have something fun coming for you all very soon that's very holiday appropriately themed. And I hope you all have a wonderful, relaxing time with your loved ones. Stay safe. Don't be toxic. And thank you all for still following along with all of our fun stuff through another exciting year. Stuff has changed, but hopefully we will continue to provide entertaining content for you all on a regular basis in multiple different places. So that's basically it. I am Meso.
I'm Eljay. Music started.
And streaming to you from a golden beach, this was Knack and Jay.